everybody, welcome to another drive-through rundown. It's been a little while since I did one of these. I'm going to talk about the collector's edition for Twilight Struggle. I do promise to do this year a full review, but I will give you a little bit of my thoughts at the end of this. This was on my top 100, I don't remember where, like top 30 somewhere. Excellent game. I recommend getting it. This edition is not available right now. This was a Kickstarter. They will have some, I believe, within the next couple of months, maybe sooner, maybe later, for sale kind of to the general public. But I wouldn't wait for this. This is, I think, $130 on Kickstarter, and I don't know what the MSRP will be, you know, for retail. If that scares you away, I would still get the other edition because it's awesome. All right, so let's take a look inside here. Whoops. And this is what you get in here. Now, these are going to be very different components, obviously, than you know, the regular edition. You get this bag, pretty useless, but I get this. This is where I stick the China card here, just to keep it separate. Now, the game did come with these sleeves, which I see some griping about online. I mean, they're not horrible. I mean, they're sleeves. I don't really care. But the collector's edition will come with sleeves, which is cool. You don't have to go buy sleeves. So we've got here the different cards. There is new backs on the cards. I'll show that. And if you're not familiar with the game, I'll kind of do my best to sort of guide you here. I won't get too much of the rules. You can see you've got the amount of points you can play the card for, either its ops points or the event, and you've got different colors, so you can see a US event versus a Soviet event, and this is going to be either or. And really cool. I think the art is all the same. It looks the same anyway. From I got rid of my other copy, like, I don't know, whenever they announced this Kickstarter, I just got rid of that one. Yeah, that's the same. So anyway, it's nice, and the backs are different. I like the backs. Those are cool. So the card stock itself, if you don't like these sleeves or don't want to sleeve it, is good. Sometimes GMT games can be super, super thick, but it seems like they've sort of fine-tuned their process over time. They've gotten a little bit better. So these are still thick and sturdy and high quality, but they're not too stiff. So it is easy to even riffle shuffle these if you so choose. So these are the different cards, and in the original game, these little influence markers here were actually cardboard, and let's take a look at these here, and these are actually wooden. Very nice. I actually really like these. These are going to be nice to put out onto the board themselves. This is how you keep track of who controls different regions on the board, which I'll show you in just a second. And these cubes, I've seen some graphing about that. I have not yet played it, so I don't really have a problem with cubes. You know, I'm kind of a Euro gamer, so cubes are easy for me to look at. But I do kind of understand the point. The other game had double-sided control markers for, you know, red for Soviet and blue for the US. You actually, to indicate that you have complete control of a region, you'll use these markers here. These dice are really neat. Now, each side is going to get one die. They give you a really big die and a really sort of the normal die here. So this is the one which has the symbol of your nation, and you're going to be rolling these for realignment and coup attempts and stuff like that. So not a ton of dice rolling, but it can come into play crucial points. Here we've got some extra sleeves. Here are the Soviet markers. Here are some of the different tracker markers here. I did notice mine, it said put some of these on like the yellow blocks. I didn't get any yellow blocks. I just got tan blocks. I think that's normal. Either that's a misprint or they decided not to do yellow. It doesn't really matter, because what really matters here is what's on these. You will have to sticker these, but it's not the end of the world. You can see these actually are double-sided, and you'll put these out. You'll play certain events. You know, some of these will trigger events, and you'll want to make note of it and remember that, hey, now you can't play the NATO card, you know, in this zone because this other event happened. It does come with some promo cards and optional cards. You can see this is a token here that you actually will put on the board. I think some of this is new. I know some of it I had in my edition, but there is some new stuff. You can shuffle these in as well. There is here this turn 0 thing. This looks cool. I'm really interested to play with this because this kind of sets up different crisis cards. Let's take a look at that. And you get these, and you'll go through all of these, but you don't know which order it comes up, and then you'll roll a die, and then depending on the die roll, as well as the statecraft cards. And each player can play these. I'm not going to get these out, but you can play these. Oh, that's not them. Well, they're in the back here. There's these different cards that you can do to affect the die roll And that's going to sort of change the setup. So Chinese Civil War, Yalta and Potsdam, 1945 UK election, Israel, VE Day, and so on, VJ Day. And so this is going to just change the setup a little bit. And I think that's really cool, kind of a new thing for folks that, you know, they have like their opening gambits and stuff that they do. That will kind of change the spice up there. Now here is the, well, I like them. So I guess they were supposed to be metal. I don't remember because the Kickstarter was so long ago. But you have here these plastic tanks. And you also have the DEF CON marker here, which is this ICBM. It's plastic. I like that. And then you have the space age, space race markers there. Sputnik, and then the capsule there. These are not bad. They're sort of a plasticky resin kind of feel. They're kind of hefty. I like them. I don't know. Some people, I think they said they were going to be metal. I don't remember. I think they're fine. I think they look really cool. Rulebook here, I couldn't really see any changes here other than indicating some of the different components and stuff. It feels sturdier than before. You do also have a alternate space track that you can use, which I haven't really looked at. Here's the turn 0 rules themselves, which I just explained to you. And here's the optional space track rules. Then you have, it gives you 2 player aids, which is nice. So these are the different player aids. And this is really the game. I mean, you're doing realignment, you're playing cards for ops or doing the events, and the ops just add influence, or you can use them to sort of buff up the coups and the realignment rolls and all that stuff. And then you're going to score at different types of the game. So the interesting thing about this, before I show you the map, if you've not played the game, is you play it for the ops or for the event, or let's say I'm the US and I play this card for the ops. Well, it's a Soviet event. It's going to trigger anyway. Now you can once per turn sort of discard a card to bump up the space race. So there's that way, if you have like a deadly card that you don't want the event to trigger, then you can do that. And then each player randomly through the game is going to be dealt these scoring cards. Well, you can see this says may not be held. And that means at some point you're going to score Africa this turn. Now I have this card, you don't know I have this card, but based on my actions on the board, you go, he has the Africa card. He's going to score that. Or you could bluff and not have any scoring card. And, you know, and so on. So that's a really cool mechanism of the game. So let's take a look at the board. It is double-sided, and I apologize because I don't know the difference. I don't know that there's a difference. They give you this little certificate too. So we'll close that, and we're just going to go ahead and open up the board. It is very different than the original. I think there's just a different color scheme from what I remember. I looked at it a little bit yesterday, and I couldn't see any real difference in terms of functionality. But I think this is the new side of the board here. And like I said, if you're not familiar with the game, you'll start with some influence markers here. There should be little numbers, to tell you how much influence you start with there. You can kind of see that. So you'll start off with sort of presence and control of different areas there. If you ever control Europe, you'll win. And what is interesting is, where's the VP track? Oh, it's down here. Yeah, that's a little different. So the VP starts here, and then whenever the US gets it, it's going to go left. Whenever the USSR gets it, it's going to go right. And then if you ever get to the end there, that's when you get an immediate victory. You have to also be careful of triggering world nuclear war. There's a DEF CON track here. There's different military operations for, this is like your military track, so when you do coups, you have to do a certain number of coups and stuff like that. And you play a fixed number of rounds, and you could see there's an early war, late war, and mid-war decks. And you, like I said, you play cards for either ops points to sort of get area control, or you trigger the events, which are usually really cool. And you try to build up to a point where, you know, the events are more meaningful than if they weren't. Now, sometimes you can see here, some of these cards, let's find one. We'll say here, remove from play if used as an event. Now, not all the cards say that. So what you can try to do is, you might have a really cool event early in the game, but when you discard it for the ops, it's going to come back up because you're going to, at certain points, shuffle the mid-war and the late war into the deck. So those cards are going to come back up, and then you're like, okay, if I try to put this one in there, my opponent's got to play it, or hopefully I draw it, and then I can do the cooler event now because now I've kind of set myself up. So the game, needless to say, rewards repeated plays in that way. And it's a very, very, very simple game. You know, you just are trying to get influence and then score those cards in the way that best matches you. And the game really is about learning the different events, which is cool because you're kind of like learning the history and learning about what can happen. And like, oh, there's a Cuba event, I don't remember the name of it, but that you've got to watch out for. And there's some different events that will kind of swing things left and right in East Germany and West Germany. So you kind of play through that history of it. And it's really neat. But that's all you're doing is just really playing a card and using either ops points to trigger one of like 3 or 4 different actions and then doing the event. Anyway, that's kind of the unboxing of that. I do promise, I did a review of Kalis this year. One thing I said I promised myself is to do more war games, and because I kind of slacked on that a little bit last year, and I like playing them, but I haven't really reviewed any. And in some of the games, like in my top 100 from last year, that I haven't reviewed, and I kind of feel dumb, let me tell you, that doing a review of this, because there's a handful of good videos on it, but there's a lot of really good written reviews, and it's one of those things that I like to read reviews of like Twilight Struggle and other games like that. But there's a lot of good information about this game. It used to be #1 on BGG until Pandemic Legacy came around. It's still #2. It might go back to #1. But there's a lot of good information about this, but I will do a full review of it later. Anyway, that was just a little sneak peek at the collector's edition, which should be coming out to retail, I don't know, this year. But anyway, thanks.